The fandom for Genshin Impact is one of the largest and most active in the world. It is a global community known for its incredible creativity, while also having a notorious reputation for its internal conflicts. It is a space where passion can quickly curdle into something far more hostile. A recent controversy provides a perfect and frankly disturbing story of how this happens. It is about a voice actor, a playful joke about a fan pairing, and the wildly disproportionate backlash that followed. Looking closer, it becomes a potent example of several destructive forces common in modern fandoms: the intense nature of shipping culture, the weaponization of fan theories, the erosion of the boundary between a creator's public work and private life, and the volatile dynamics of one-sided parasocial relationships. All of these complicated forces recently converged in one person in a very public, very messy way. The person at the center of it all was Kat Pratano, the English voice actor for Skirk. Before this incident, if you followed her online, you would know she was one of the more engaged VAs in the community. Not in a highly toxic, dramatic way, but she was very playful, very interactive, the kind of creator who seems to genuinely enjoy the fandom space. And so she starts posting about a crack ship. For anyone who doesn't know, a crack ship is a fan pairing that is intentionally bizarre, with zero plausible basis in the actual story. It is a joke. In this case, the ship was between her character, Skirk, and another character named 𝗿𝗏𝗏. The reason for this pairing wasn't hidden deep in the game's lore. It wasn't about the hair color either, or I don't know. It was actually based on something outside of the game. Kat Pratano, the voice of Skirk, is in a real-life relationship with the voice actor for 𝗿𝗏𝗏. The ship was simply an inside joke about their own lives, reflected through their characters. It was wholesome, it was silly, and I've seen a lot of fans even made arts for it. And for a little while, that's all it was. But this is the Genshin community, so of course it didn't last. I consent. I consent. I don't consent. Is there someone you forgot to ask? The backlash that began to form wasn't a simple disapproval. It was a full-blown campaign of moral panic. This is when a group becomes convicted that some perceived evil is threatening the community, and they react with disproportionate hostility. The central accusation they settled on was that the ship was analogous to grooming. The justification for this was a journey, to say the least. The argument, constructed by the most dedicated lore enthusiasts, went like this. Skirk's master is a character named 𝗖cie𝗽𝗆𝗆𝗏𝗏, one of the sinners from a fallen nation. The character 𝗿𝗏𝗏 is also a sinner, which they argued makes him a peer of Skirk's master, 𝗖cie𝗽𝗆𝗏𝗏. And since Skirk was trained from a young age, any romantic relationship with a peer of her master would be predatory. Using a knowledge of a fictional world to construct what looks like a legal argument against something you simply don't like. The game's own story becomes ammunition in a fan dispute. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't stop there though. Other complaints piled on. Fan art depicting the powerful Skirk as the tsundere. You know, the trope where a character is cold at first before they start warming up and then they show their true side. That was called a mischaracterization by the fandom. Depicting her in a submissive pose was treated as an attack on her character or something. So what started as a voice actor lighthearted joke was now being treated as a serious moral transgression, prosecuted with the game's most obscure lore as legal text. And those accusations, they were aimed directly at a real person who would eventually be forced to respond. In a series of posts on her X account, Kat Pratano addressed the situation. Her first tweet was a direct attempt to de-escalate, to apply simple logic to a situation that had become completely illogical. She wrote, "I didn't realize it would become a big deal, but just to clear things up, it is a crack ship for funsies." She then explicitly addressed the most severe claims. "I didn't mean to insinuate any kind of grooming or mischaracterization of Skirk. It is a clear, straightforward statement, an attempt to remind everyone the foundation of this drama was a joke." In the follow-up, you can see her having to explain the very human motivation behind it. She says, "It was purely me being silly and in love and enjoying something with my partner while being appreciative of fan work. I was never serious, I promise." Now here, the dynamic becomes particularly grim. The very things that made her an engaging figure, her openness about her life, her relationship, her previously discussed struggles with anxiety, were the exact vulnerabilities that were targeted. The personal connection she built was twisted into ammunition to be used against her. This all leads to the inevitable conclusion of stories like this. Her final tweet in the thread reads, "I realize I should be more professional and represent my work better, so I will likely be stepping away from Twitter for a bit." It is important to understand what this statement really is. It isn't an admission of genuine wrongdoing, it is a surrender. She gave up on y'all, bruh. It is a result of where engaging with the community has become too high of a price to pay. It is the chilling effect in action. A creator creators celebrated for being personal is now forced back into a distant, professional box, punished for the very interaction a fandom supposedly craves. Her stepping back is the logical outcome when a creator's personal life becomes a battleground for fictional disputes, which leaves us with a much bigger question. What is it about the culture of this fandom that allows something so absurd to escalate to this point? And to understand that, you have to look at the foundation of how Genshin Impact is designed, not just as a game, but as a product. If you don't know already, Genshin is a gacha game, and a core part of that business model is getting players to spend money on a wide variety of characters. To do that, the developers need as many players as possible to feel a personal connection to as many characters as possible. The easiest way to ensure that is to make every playable character remain, more or less, romantically available to the player's imagination. So HoYoverse almost never confirms official romantic relationships. In this case, it is a void where no fan pairing or ship is officially real. You might think this would lead to a peaceful, let everyone enjoy what they want attitude, but in practice, it often does the exact opposite, fostering a fierce market-like competition for narrative real estate. They are all fighting for their ship to be seen as the most dominant or correct one. This isn't unique to Genshin either, though. We have seen similar extreme reaction in other HoYoverse titles, like the backlash to a male and female character simply interacting in a Honkai Star Rail trailer. The primary way they fight for this territory is by treating their personal interpretations as undeniable fact. In fandom, we have the term headcanon, right? Your personal version of the story that lives in your head. It's supposed to be fun, creative exercise in this highly competitive environment. However, headcanon can stop being a personal interpretation and become a set of beliefs treated as absolutely unquestionably true. This is where the enforcers come in. The fans who see themselves as the guardians of this argument, of this headcanon ship. They don't just share their interpretations, they aggressively police the fan content of others, attacking an artist for drawing a character in a relationship they disapprove of, or with a personality that contradicts their specific headcanon. Oh, but this character is gay. Oh, but this character likes women. Oh. All of this is amplified by social media echo chambers, where they can find hundreds of others who believe the exact same thing, reinforcing the idea that their opinion is the only correct one. So this is the environment, a void left by the game, filled by factions aggressively defending their version of the truth. That still doesn't explain the sheer intensity, why a fictional disagreement can feel like a profound personal betrayal. And for that, we need to look at the psychology behind the screen. And that psychology often revolves around what is called a parasocial relationship. Well, let me explain. A parasocial relationship is the one-sided bond you feel with someone in the media. You feel like you know them, but they don't know you. For a long time, this was a distant thing, like with a movie star on screen, or with Pokimane or something like that. Social media has fundamentally changed all of this. Creators and voice actors like Kat Pratano are accessible. They are on Twitter, and they reply to fans. They like the fan art, they repost it. They share details about their lives, all of which cultivates a powerful illusion of intimacy. It no longer feels like a distant star. It feels like a real two-way friendship. For most people, this is harmless. For a small, highly invested minority, that feeling of affection can curdle into a sense of ownership. They've invested so much emotional energy to this friendship that they begin to feel that they have a say in how their friend should behave. When that creator, their friend, violates their unwritten rules by supporting the wrong ship, it isn't just a simple disagreement. It is experienced as a profound personal betrayal. The harassment that follows is what you could call parasocial punishment. And if it's just random anger, that would make more sense. But it is an actual attempt to correct the creator's behavior, punishing them for breaking the rules of a relationship that only exists on one side. And if it's one guy, it wouldn't be as bad. But it becomes far more intense when amplified by a group dynamic. It's like collective narcissism. A group develops an inflated sense of its importance and superiority, becoming extremely sensitive to any perceived threat. It is like a whole group sharing one big, fragile ego. Shipping factions can be a perfect breeding ground for this. A group can start to believe that their interpretation isn't just an opinion, it is the superior opinion, the most correct, the most faithful to the canon. From that perspective, when a voice actor promotes a rival ship, it is not a fun difference of opinion. It is seen as a threat to the group's identity. The reaction is proportional to that threat. The goal isn't to debate, it is to annihilate the threat. And nowadays, often by making it seem morally sick, as with the grooming accusations, so it can be dismissed entirely. There is also a simpler, more direct motivation. For some individuals who may feel a lack lack of power or control in their own lives, forcing a public figure to bend to their will is a tangible win. It is a way to bring others down, which can feel powerful, if dysfunctional motivator. So when you combine an individual's sense of parasocial betrayal with a group's narcissistic rage, you get the perfect storm for this kind of harassment. Understanding this is the engine driving the conflict is the first step toward figuring out what fundamental truths have been lost along the way. And those truths are fundamentally quite simple. They are the basic distinctions that get lost in the heat of these online warfare. First, and this should be the most obvious one, voice actors are not their characters. They are professional performance hired to do a job. Kat Pratano is a person with their own life, relationships, and opinions. She is not Skirk. Her personal life does not and cannot dictate the fictional canon of the game. Second, your personal interpretation of the story is not the official story. Your headcanon is not canon. Sure, it is a huge and creative part of the fandom, and that's great, but it is not a set of laws to be enforced. The moment you treat your personal interpretations like an unchallengeable dogma, you have missed the entire point. And finally, and most importantly, this discourse is not happening in a void. These are not just words thrown at a screen name. A real person is on the other side of that screen, whose mental health and career are being impacted. The harm is tangible. Despite all of this, the reaction to the incident also revealed something more hopeful. When this harassment campaign started, the response from the broader community was overwhelmingly supportive of Kat Pratano. For every toxic comment, there were dozens more condemning the attacks. The problem, as it's so often the case online, is that the most aggressive voices are usually the loudest, while the reasonable silent majority often stays quiet. This really gets to the heart of how you can fix a community space. A healthier fandom isn't about eliminating all disagreements. It is about the positive majority refusing to cede the floor to its most toxic elements. And this becomes even more challenging, however, when official community spaces appear to enable the opposite. In this case, discussions about the controversy were reportedly censored and removed from official Genshin subreddits under vague rules, effectively silencing good faith conversation while allowing the hostile narrative to fester. While the discussion itself is controlled, the positive majority is neutered. The responsibility doesn't just lie with a handful of harassers, it lies with the community that decides what behavior it's willing to tolerate. Because the incident with Kat Pratano isn't just a story about a crack ship, it is a perfect illustration of the impossible position creators find themselves in today. And that impossible position is really the heart of the matter. The incident with Kat Pratano serves as a perfect and frankly exhausting case study of how dangerously blurred the boundaries have become in the modern online fandoms. The line between fiction and reality, the line between creator and the consumer, and maybe the most important one, the line between genuine affection and a sense of entitled ownership. It is tempting to look at this and blame a few toxic fans, but the problem is bigger than that. It is systemic, driven by the very architecture of social media, which is designed to create that illusion of intimacy that we talked about. It is fueled by unchecked parasocial dynamics and enabled by a culture where the tools of the fandom, the deep lore, the passion itself, can be so easily weaponized. Ultimately, the health of these massive online communities won't be fixed by a developer's new terms of service or a platform's moderation policy. It comes down to a greater media literacy, of basic fundamental understanding of the difference between a person and a persona. And it depends on a collective refusal from the majority of good faith fans to accept harassment as a legitimate form of discourse. But I think that is all from me, 𝗖cie𝗽𝗆𝗆, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers!